Rocket.
You are. I actually was going to use as an introduction for an episode where I was going to refer to you as the Rocket to my I am Groot. Oh, I think I might have actually even used that. I don't know.
You are overgrown wood.
Yes, I am.
I love my twisted humor. So, Will Friedle is going to play Star-Lord. This is all new to me. Everything I told him about this show and everything, like this podcast, he has already said he's heard about it.
I've heard
sucks.
about it. I haven't been able to do as much research into this as you have for a number of reasons.
Because I have no life. I admit it. Vanessa Marshall is going to be Gamora. I hope she does the voice perfectly. Is obviously with anime, it's the voices that matter.
Well, that's just it. You want to have really good voices.
Yes. David Soboleff is going to be Drax. Trevor Duvall is going to be Rocket, which actually sounds like the Rocket from the movie.
Yeah, he does. He sounds a lot like Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, so Kevin Michael Richardson is going to be Groot.
Which, honestly, is probably going to be the easiest job ever, because all he has to do is just say,
Groot.
I am Groot, and just say it, a couple different ways, and, congratulations, here's your paycheck.
James Arnold Taylor is going to be Yondu and Cosmo.
Why not?
Yeah, if you're going to do one, why not do the other? Yeah, honestly, I am excited for it. I am annoyed the fact that I'm so fascinated by a 15-second short.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, they go off and shove a lot of good stuff within 15 seconds, which is amazing.
But it's Guardians of the Galaxy. They don't have to shove it. All they have to do is show the main characters, a little bit of action scene, and we're hooked.
Very true.
It's Guardians of the Galaxy. You could do an entire 15-second, short of just Rocket, and we'd all be salivating.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, speaking of trailers or whatever, I actually managed to find a pirate copy of the actual Deadpool trailer,
which has made me hate him more now than ever before.
I think by now it's probably been taken down. It was on YouTube up until a couple days ago, I'm sure. And honestly, they go off and they do play in a little bit to the teaser trailer, or the teaser that they created a couple of years ago when they were coming up with the concept for the movie. And it's a lot. I mean, a lot of the stuff that people really want in this movie is going to be in this movie. I can't remember the name of the actual character, but there is this old blind woman who Deadpool is supposed to kill. He doesn't end up killing her, but he ends up kidnapping her and making her his roommate. And so she will actually be a character in this movie. I saw this in the trailer.
Do you want to know what I really want out of the Deadpool movie?
What?
Deadpool.
It's going, honestly, and here it is, I mean, as you would say, this is going to be a hard R as far as the rating. So, I mean, just everything I've seen, it's great. I'm just, honestly, if I wasn't a fan of Ryan Reynolds going into this movie, I'm a huge fan of his now. I mean, this has really become almost a passion, piece for him.
I think, honestly, what destroyed people's opinion of Ryan Reynolds and, the attitude was him playing the Green Lantern.
And here's the thing. He has stated on several occasions that he was really disappointed in that he didn't actually get to wear the Green Lantern suit. Oh, it was almost completely CGI, which he hated.
It isn't an entire surprise when you look at a movie of that caliber, but it does suck. And it's not because of Ryan Reynolds' acting or him himself of why people mistrusted him after the Green Lantern. It was the movie itself. It was a poor quality excuse.
Well, and here's the thing. He wasn't happy about about his character, and his character is Wade, who becomes Deadpool. in X-Men Origins Wolverine.
No.
He hated that as well, especially the part in the movie where they go off and his mouth is sewn shut.
Which is the worst possible thing to do to Deadpool. This is the Merc with the mouth.
Merc with the mouth, thank you. And, I mean, that was really frustrating, so they go off, and apparently they might even go off and kind of take shots at that movie within this movie.
I wouldn't be surprised if they do.
Because, I mean...
But at the same point, maybe they just want to distance themselves from the abomination that became.
Well, absolutely. I mean, honestly, almost any... I mean, as much as I loved a couple of the X-Men movies, X-Men movies, the one actually that's funniest to me is that my two favorite X-Men movies are probably The Wolverine, which was his last standalone movie, and Days of Futures Past. And I gotta tell you, I've seen commercials for the Road Cut, which is apparently a completely different movie than the first one. Well, not completely, but I mean it's got whole sections that are completely different to the movie, where it's almost where they have to rescue Rogue and all this stuff. And so I'm actually curious. I'd love to go off and watch that. And I realize we're kind of getting sidetracked quite a bit here.
See, no, because we're talking about movies, we're talking about TV shows, and it all ties in together. The comic book world has really entered this phase where everything is starting to tie in with each other. What's unfortunate for the X-Men universe is moving forward without Hugh Jackman.
And it's interesting because I believe we mentioned this a couple episodes. The next Wolverine standalone movie will be Old Man Logan.
Yes, which is very unique. I personally love the comic books of Old Man Logan, so I'm excited to see it put into a movie form. But I still don't know how much weight Wolverine can hold without Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman was and has always been the perfect persona of Wolverine.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know if he's even in this this X-Men movie. I think I
believe he makes cameos.
I think he'll be in Apocalypse. We know that Old Man Logan is apparently going to be his last movie as Wolverine. And I'm kind of curious to see where they're going to go with this, because a lot of the characters or supporting cast that were in the comics are not even accessible because Marvel owns the movie rights to them. So I mean, we know that Hawkeye, who he sidekick with Wolverine for a good part of the story, is not going to be available for this movie unless Sony comes to another agreement with Marvel.
Which Marvel is starting to really dislike agreements with anybody. Marvel has been royally screwed.
Well, apparently I don't know. I'm not quite sure, who's got what power on this. I know there's probably a couple times where Marvel has probably been banging their head against the wall with Spider-Man. But, I mean, they want Spider-Man that much in their cinematic universe. I'm got my fingers crossed for that. I'm going to say this before we move on. I'm scared for this Apocalypse movie. I don't like the way that Apocalypse looks.
No, he looks very pathetic.
It's funny because there was a bunch of people who went off and posted different pictures with Apocalypse. And, and they're comparing them to one of the big baddies that was in the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers series. And how cheesy, just because of how cheesy he looks. He looks absolutely cheesy.
I believe that was actually the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie. He basically was kind of like the king of ooze. I do remember that. And I do see the resemblance, which is really scary. And I don't like it just reminds me of X-Men 3 all over again.
And you know what? Honestly, I mean, they have him as like a regular size where, I mean, maybe I'm getting too critical, but I really feel that Apocalypse should be at least 7 feet tall. And just the head. I don't get the look.
You look at Watchmen, what they were able to do with Mr. Manhattan's character, of able to make him, virtually big through CGI. So it's not impossible for them to do it. They're just choosing not to, which I think is the wrong decision. I think it's the worst decision, and I really hope this doesn't blow up in their face, but this could potentially sink them back into the days where X-Men has become a mockery, a joke, and not worth watching anymore.
Well, I believe on Tuesday's episode I actually brought up how Marvel has decided not to produce a toy line based off this movie.
Which is an interesting fact.
So, I mean, there's something kind of, I think they kind of looked at this and like, yeah, you know what? We're good here, thanks. We don't need to, water down our product by putting out, crap.
And see, that's the scary thing. What do they refer to the crap? The toys that they'd be putting out or the movie? Or both?
I think both.
And see, that's the scary as people who have grown up with X-Men, who've grown up with all that. I do not want to see the rebirth of the age where X-Men is unwatchable. X-Men 3 really destroyed anyone's opinion.
I was so frustrated with that. And I remember I went off, I saw Days of Future Past, and I immediately text messaged you and said, they have finally turned the franchise around and have gotten it right.
And now we are heading back.
Now I'm like, oh my god, what have they done to the greatest X-Men villain of all time?
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. As always, we reserve right to, criticize until after we've seen it. But our hopes are not high.
You know what? Honestly, this isn't meant to be criticism. This is just me voicing my fear.
Yeah, by in no ways, though, does our opinion reflect on what you guys think. We do not expect you to think what we do. Everyone has their freedom of expression. Unfortunately, it is not what it should be. But there are things in the universe that has kind of proven us wrong as of lately. There is a very interesting fan theory.
Oh, yes. Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about. I won't go through all the details on this, but this theory apparently was produced by I'm not even going to bother trying to find this guy. It came up on Reddit, actually. And the theory is that this Joker is not the actual original Joker. It is, in fact, Jason Todd, who was the second individual to be Robin, sidekick of Batman.
Yeah.
And if you're not familiar with Jason Todd again...
You're not alone in that theory. There are a lot of people who do not know the origin of Jason Todd.
Okay. Jason Todd was the second Robin, as I pointed out. I believe he was actually at one point adopted by Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, he was actually treated as a son.
He was treated as a son. The Joker kills him, which, causes, Bruce Wayne and, of course, a lot of grief. A couple of years later, someone calling themselves the Red Hood, which was a persona that the Joker had before he became that. It was actually, he was, under the hood when he fell into the tub of acid, which turned him into his ghastly white form. And it becomes later known that this version of the Red Hood is, in fact, Jason Todd. Now, what the suggestions is that this might explain why the Joker's got so many tattoos. There's a J on his cheek.
Not only so much the amount of tattoos, but the very meaningful momentum behind them.
Yes, there is a bird. The Joker's got a bird. I believe it's on his chest.
Yeah, actually, it's on his arm, about kind of the joint of the elbow. It's bird feathers which resemble a robin.
It could be a robin. The J on his cheek. Of course, it could be J for Joker, but it also could be J for Jason Todd.
And see, the thing though is, Joker has never been the one for vanity, for the tattoos, for things like that. So it's a very interesting thing. And Jason Todd was very well known for pretending to be Joker, but also putting it out there of who he was in hopes that Batman would actually, recognize him. The main one, which a lot of people have noticed that, people thought was